excited to hear about this. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Marjolein. Yay!
So I have to unmute myself. Hello, thank you so much for that, Elliot. And also thanks, Julia, that was really fantastic. I was slightly worried when I stood up that everyone would see that I'm wearing yoga leggings, but I've now ruined that surprise anyway. I would like to start with asking whether you have ever been on a roller coaster. Has anyone ever been on a roller coaster? Yeah, a few people. See some hands up. Now, that feeling when you're slowly going up and then they hold you at the top and you're sitting there in the carriage, they hold you at the top and then suddenly they drop you and you get that physical sensation of your stomach dropping out of your lower body. I'll just phrase it like that rather than how I say it to my friends. I was having that sensation 5 or 6 times a day up until I was about 30, and I thought that was normal because I'd never talked to anyone about it. I'd never asked whether anyone else had that sensation. I just assumed everyone did. But I kept this calm exterior because that's just what I thought was important. So I was calm outside, fireworks inside. And the problem was that at the time, the topic of mental health wasn't really spoken about. And it was very stigmatized. And actually, even now, when people are speaking about it more openly, there's a lot of celebrities speaking about it on social media, some of them still get dragged through the mud for it, or, you know, teased, made fun of, described as snowflakes, you know, that kind of thing. So even though we are speaking about it, there's still some stigma attached, or people are still trying to keep a stigma attached to it. And what I found is that although I thought it was totally normal and I'd never bothered to mention it to anyone, once I had a panic attack and then started talking about it at work, loads of people came out of the woodwork. You know, 3, 4, 5 people were like, oh yeah, you know, I've had a panic attack, or I get them around my period, or someone who was like, yeah, I get them like 5 times a month. But again, people had just gone to their doctor but weren't necessarily speaking to their peers about it. So I would just like to say as well that obviously with anxiety, we're not just worrying about something, it's an overwhelming fear. You find it difficult to cope. Now, I've developed coping mechanisms for my own feelings of anxiety, but I've also been supporting women to transform their hormone health over the last couple of years. And one of the main symptoms when people are going through hormone imbalance, or frequently as they're coming into their luteal phase or the second half of their cycle, they're experiencing anxiety. So I've worked with other people to relieve anxiety. And I think currently in the UK, and actually on a global scale, in fact, we've all just been dropped off the roller coaster. We're all at that point. We've all had that, our stomachs are dropping. So what I'd like to do today is share some practical advice to support your body with this collective sadness and panic and fear that we're experiencing. So I'm going to share 5 tips with you today. Now, the first thing I'd like to talk about is, for a lot of people not used to working from home, it's a real challenge to be so close to the fridge and not be fairly intimate with it on a regular basis through the day. Now, when we are in our anxiety or in our fear response, it's actually stimulating a physiological response. And Julia referred to it earlier. You've got this cortisol release, this stress hormone. And actually, what we really need to do is we need to make sure that our blood sugar is very balanced. Because if every time we eat, our body releases insulin, our blood sugar increases, and then our body releases insulin to bring your blood sugar back down. If you're eating something that's very, very sweet, or simple carbohydrates that really quickly turn into sugar, then what happens is that your body releases more insulin and your blood sugar can go too low. And guess what gets released to bring it back up? It's a stress hormone, it's cortisol. So really what we need to be doing is eating meals that are going to balance our blood sugar. And so by that, I mean, you want to make sure there's some protein, there's some complex carbohydrates, so things like whole grains and vegetables are complex carbohydrates, and then a little bit of healthy fat. So tip number 1 is eating balanced meals. Tip number 2, you need to release that relationship with the fridge and stop snacking, okay? And I know that's difficult, But every time you eat, you have this insulin response. And so what we're trying to do is keep our blood sugar as balanced as possible. Why are you snacking? Are you still hungry? Maybe eat more for your main meals. If you really, really do need a snack because you're hungry, then follow the principle for rule number 1 and make sure that the snack is balanced. Okay, so protein, complex carbs, and healthy fats. And thirdly, and this is a sensitive one for me as well, is caffeine. Now, I'm very, very sensitive to caffeine, but I also love coffee. Love it. This morning, I had a coffee. Then I realized the time and had to hurry to the shops before the queues got enormous and 700 meters long because of the gaps. We have a padlock on the gate because we're weird. I locked the padlock and suddenly I thought, oh my God, I don't have the keys. And I was on the roller coaster, literally I had that feeling and haven't had it in a long time. The keys were in my hand. They were literally in my hand. And then I thought, okay, step away from the caffeine. So tomorrow my challenge is no coffee. I'm going to go for herbal tea instead. Same for you guys. When you're having caffeine, it's releasing cortisol into your bloodstream. So if you're having these anxiety symptoms, you're feeling a lot of fear, step away from the coffee. Try decaf or try herbal tea. Now, that covers blood sugar and cortisol. But there's a really strong relationship with the gut and your brain health. So your gut is sometimes called your second brain. So the next 2 tips are related to gut health. So your gut actually produces a lot of neurotransmitters, and your gut bacteria can produce a lot of precursors to certain kind of calming things, or very, things that activate your fear system, your HPA axis. So to keep your gut happy, you need to have lots of variety and lots of different colors. And I'm talking about fruits and vegetables, ideally not E numbers. So lots of green veg, lots of berries, things that are bright. Okay, so your basket, and I know veggies can be hard to come by, but maybe don't go for the ones that you're always used to. Pick up the chicory. I know it's there. I was in Sainsbury's the other day. Chicory leeks. People aren't eating them. Why? They're so good for you. Google a recipe. Just try something different. So my tip number 4 is eat the rainbow. Your gut bacteria will thank you for it. And then my 5th tip is around anxiety as well. Mindful eating. Okay, when we're very stressed and we've got this fear response, we produce less stomach acid, we produce less enzymes. So we need to be in rest and digest when we're sitting down to eat a meal. So take a deep breath before you begin to eat. Deep breath in, deep breath out. When we breathe out for longer than we breathe in, you kick into your parasympathetic nerve response, your rest and digest. I mentioned this earlier to people in a different context, but chew your food because your stomach doesn't have teeth. So you need to make sure that your food is broken down well so that you're actually able to absorb all the nutrients from it. And step away from the screen. During a mealtime, try and maybe have a meal with your loved ones, or I'm isolating on my own. So I just sit there and really enjoy my food. I've been enjoying cooking though. It's not stressful for me. So I'm very lucky in that respect. But put the screens away. When we're looking at the screens, we're stimulating a stress response in the body. So those are my 5 tips. So the first 3 around blood sugar. We need to make sure that we're eating balanced meals, ideally not snacking, so eating more with your meals instead. And then reducing your caffeine, or if you're very sensitive like this guy, cut your caffeine out. Then your final 2 tips around gut health: eat a rainbow, because your gut bacteria have a really close link to your brain health. And then finally, eat mindfully. So those are my 5 tips. I would also like to caveat that with everyone is different. Okay, so some people, when I say eat loads of different veggies, they panic because they will get loads of symptoms around their digestion. I was just speaking to a practitioner. Also around blood sugar, some people are really sensitive to all carbohydrates, including whole grains. So again, speak to a practitioner if you want more specific advice. Thank you so much. I hope those tips are helpful for you.
Yay, thank you, Marjolein. And amazing, great tips. I really look forward to you turning that into a little document that then we could share, because I think it's so valuable. And as well, same with you, Julia, what you're sharing here is so insightful. so valuable that people need to be able to read it afterwards as well.